Hi and welcome. My name is Rob Scott from UC Today, bringing you the latest in unified communications and collaboration news and conversation. So today we are focused in on Cisco again, and I'm joined by Jonathan George, Webex Master and Digital Collaboration Lead at Adoptt. Welcome, Jonathan. How are you today?
Hey Rob, good to see you again, and nice to see we're all fully branded up. You with your UC Today t-shirt, and I've got at least one bit of swag that I managed to get out of Cisco.
Well, indeed. I'm still waiting for my Cisco t-shirt, but that's another conversation. No, seriously. Today's session, Jonathan, we said we're going to focus in on Cisco's latest acquisition of BabbleLabs. We're going to talk about noise suppression or noise cancellation or noise removal, whatever you want to call it. It's interesting, isn't it? And there's certainly more than meets the eye on this one.
Well, one could say there's more than meets the ear, I think.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Jonathan, let's just set the scene in terms of what is noise suppression. Tell me more about it. What is it? Is it as simple as it sounds, or is there more to it?
I think the bottom line with all of this is it's about distractions, right? It's about trying to, as we've, particularly in current times, as we've moved to this virtual online environment where people no longer can go and find the quiet, room in the office to have that conversation. They're working from their bedroom or their kitchen or their home office or whatever it is, with lots of other stuff going on around it, then potentially you've got this. I think it's always been important to minimize distractions, right? But now even more so, right? So I think in the early days of video conferencing, one of my pet hates is that I get on a video conference and for whatever reason I'm getting a lag between the audio and the video, so it's all out of lip sync. It's like watching a 1920s film, right, where the mouth's moving and the audio is lagging by a few milliseconds, and you spend all your time concentrating on why is that all out of sync rather than actually being present in the meeting. I think the other thing, just to broaden the conversation, is we've seen Cisco do a lot in the recent 40.9 release of Webex to introduce virtual backgrounds, right? One could argue that Cisco always viewed that as a rather gimmicky consumer thing, but actually in current times, it's become really important. So I'm using the camera of a Webex Desk Pro today, right? And much as I'd like this to be my house, it isn't, right? What this room looks like, if I just show you, is that it looks a bit dull. It's got my washing thing and my kids thing in the back, and so, but I never worry about that, because obviously with this technology, then I simply put on my virtual background and I don't have to worry about what's in the background. And if it removes one more excuse for not turning your video on, right? People working from their kitchen or whatever, I don't want people seeing my house if I want to call, so it removes that distraction. So I think noise is just another level of that, right? The idea of let's take distraction out of the meeting, out of that virtual meeting experience, such that everyone can be engaged in the meeting, focused on the meeting, and be productive in the meeting, rather than worrying about the technology, right? Rather than worrying about what's happening. And again, this is nothing new. A lot of Cisco endpoints have got beamforming microphone arrays, right? So the idea that my Desk Pro here, if I was on a Cisco call, it's going to have that bubble around me that says that any sound outside of that, hopefully, it shouldn't pick up. Right, it's kind of going to try and basically only pick up the sound within the scope of me sitting in front of it. But that has its limitations, right? And I think this recent acquisition that Cisco have made is just another step towards their goal around cognitive collaboration, that AI, machine learning, natural language processing. They already acquired Vocea. Our last pod, we talked about the Webex Assistant. This is a very natural acquisition, I think, that Cisco have made. I have to say, it surprised me. I didn't see it coming. And to be brutally honest, I'd never heard of BabbleLabs before that acquisition was announced.
Well, fundamentally, it's all about improving the experience, though, isn't it? And that seems to be the kind of the theme with Cisco's acquisitions recently, certainly, and some of these new innovations. It's all about improving that experience. And as far as I'm concerned, the new anywhere work world that we are certainly now in is really kind of like the Wild West, isn't it? Because you just never know where people are going to be, what's going to be, driving past, or you never know when someone's going to be mowing the lawn, or a dog barking. So there's a lot of risk attached to communication nowadays.
Yeah, and like I say, I think in the days when we were back in the offices, right, you go and find, if you wanted an effective meeting, you go and find a meeting room that was soundproof and quiet and free from distraction. Ideally, you didn't have any windows, so people didn't get bored and look out the window. I'm joking, but because you wanted people to be present in the meeting. That's what it's about, right? It's that user experience, not having the technology get in the way, not having it too difficult to actually use, that it should just be transparent, and that just enables you to get on and get stuff done, because that's what you're trying to do, irrespective of the fact I might be sitting at home or sitting in Starbucks or out in the garden or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about Babble for a minute, and BabbleLabs, or Babble. They're a San Jose, Silicon Valley organization, as far as I can tell, just around the corner from Zoom, in fact, in San Jose. So interesting that BabbleLabs works with Zoom, it works with Microsoft Teams, it works with Webex, and Cisco have swooped in there to buy the company. So what do you know about Babble and kind of this noise removal, speech enhancement solution that they offer? Is there more in the portfolio as well?
So, like I say, I didn't. It's not a company I'd followed or was aware of really until the acquisition hit. I think they've got some great resources out there. So if you YouTube BabbleLabs, there's some great examples of their technique. They've got a guy on a boat, for goodness sake. He's out in the middle of the ocean, sailing along, and they've got the demo shows them switching the effectively the technology on and off and showing the difference. They're quite impressive demos, right? So I think they've taken a very different approach to solving the problem, in the sense that, particularly in this era of concerns around cloud and privacy and some of the concerns around that. So I think everyone is worried about Alexa devices sitting at home listening to me when I haven't said Alexa, turn on the lights or whatever, right? It's people are worried about anything. If my voice is going to the cloud and is potentially being recorded or processed in the cloud, then people raise a concern. And one could argue that Webex's acquisition of Voicea, a lot of the captioning that we showed last time is obviously heavy lifting done in the cloud. So there's some potential privacy implications there. I think BabbleLabs, from what I've seen and read, took a very different approach to that and said, look, we're going to do this at the client side. We're going to do it at source, not transmit the audio to the cloud and then process it up there and do all the heavy lifting. Now, obviously, that's going to have a requirement on your local processing, right? In terms of something's got to do that processing locally, and certainly their vision seemed to be, okay, we're going to focus on conference calling, we're going to focus on phone calls and audio calls, and their third thing, again, which I think this remains to be seen how this plays out, is the idea of command and control, rather than having a wake word that wakes something up, that they would basically produce devices, or would have their engine would sit there and have devices with predefined phrases that it would look for. Now, that obviously requires some configuration and maybe some limitations, but I think that's an interesting approach. We'll see what and if Cisco do anything with that. Right now, certainly from what I've read, the focus is we're going to do this client side, right, because that alleviates some of the cloud security privacy issues, and we're going to do it in a way that makes it transparent to the user. So right now you can anyone who's listening to this can go to the BabbleLabs website and you can download their Clear Edge client, right? Which is the thing that sits on your laptop. It's right now, it's a Windows only client. So I've had to dust off my Windows 10 laptop for this call. But it's a client that sits on that laptop.
God forbid, it's not available on Mac?
It's not available on the Mac, no. So if you go to BabbleLabs and sign up, right, it'll say, hey, we'll tell you when the Mac version is available, right? But I think
What about a smartphone? I mean, can you get it on a smartphone? Because
there's an app that you can download called Clear Cloud on the smartphone that does that. I had a play with that, but I don't think that's really where the Cisco, certainly where you'll see this come into the initial Cisco portfolio, right? I think it's that Clear Edge client technology. And right now, to configure that up, it's okay for the likes of you and me because we should know what we're doing, right? But it relies on virtual drivers to get in between effectively the physical device and what the application is using for that audio connection. So you have to remember that, okay, you have to configure the client edge to talk to your physical audio device, and then within the application use the edge audio, so you have to link the two things up, and if you don't, it doesn't work, right? What I expect to see is that Cisco just get rid of all of that, right? The idea that it will be built into the Webex client. Ultimately, I guess it'll be built into across the Cisco portfolio, but I would expect to see it firstly in the Webex client, and it's just there, right? You could probably switch it on and off, but it's just there, right? You don't have to mess about with virtual audio drivers. When I was trying to get it to work, I was trying to play around with a Windows virtual machine because I'm usually a Mac user, and it didn't work in that environment, right? I got a horrible error message because in a virtual environment, those audio drivers are all a bit complex and, certainly not something I'm an expert in.
Yeah, but it's all about the unified app nowadays, isn't it? Even Cisco, have done a lot of work to kind of just keep on kind of unifying all these capabilities and features and communications ultimately. So,
yeah.
You've been doing a bit of prep work on a bit of a demo, haven't you, over there? So, I'm sure like the audience are equally as eager to see this working. This is going to be a Jonathan George demo of the BabbleLabs technology. So, hold tight. Jonathan, do you want to take over and show us what you've done?
Yes. So you'll have to apologise for me looking down while I mess about with laptops and things. So this is obviously we're on this call right now. I'm on a laptop. I've got a speakerphone here. Right now, I'm not using the BabbleLabs technology, but hey, I'm looking at my watch. Rob, it's almost lunchtime, right? So I get out my bag of there we go.
That's not annoying, is it? No, that's very annoying.
Other packs of cheddars are available, but basically, I'm here rattling away.
In fact, that is damn right rude.
Yeah. And that's pretty distracting, I guess, for you.
It is. It's horrible.
Right, so and again, it wouldn't be. There's no way I'd be talking to you doing this, right? But if we were in a three-party or a multi-party call, I might decide that I'm going to do that, and of course, I forget to mute myself and blah blah blah. Okay, so with the Clear Edge technology, what I can do now is that if I turn it on, so I'm going to rattle my bag, but in the middle of that, I'm going to turn on the technology. Right now, again, I can still hear it. I don't know whether you can.
It's gone. It's gone.
Right. So, and just to prove that, if I turn it off while I'm doing it, then hopefully, you get it back in. I'll turn it back on. And
I'd have to click the mute button on you if I had that, capability. I would just mute you at this point and just eject you from the conversation completely, which isn't great for business, is it?
Exactly. And similarly, again, if you're, much as everybody should be engaged on their virtual conferences and all the rest of it, you're always going to have people that want to finish off that email and do anything else. So, or even in an office environment, you do that. So, for example, we've all heard one of these. Let me just turn that off for a minute.
Yeah. Hate that.
A familiar sound with you, right? So I'm leaving that running, right? I'm going to turn on the technology now. I keep talking. it's still going on in the background. I can hear it. Hopefully you can't.
Absolutely, I can't hear it now. But if I could hear it, it's so distracting, not just for you, but for me as well. I can't concentrate. I can only do one thing at once. I'm a typical man, but I can't concentrate on the conversation if I've got that level of noise in the background.
Exactly, right. And here we go. He's still banging away in the background, right? So let's this time I'll turn him off. So I'll turn him off, right? So, and then the other thing, of course, is working at home, right? Is that and again, bear with me 1 second, is that
you're going to make the dog bark now, aren't you? kick the dog.
The dog barks of its own. I can't control the dog, but I can control this. But we're at home, and obviously I'm sitting in front of my palatial lawn outside, and it's it's a Friday when we're doing this, and of course it's time to mow the lawn. So suddenly we're talking, and out of nowhere, I guess you can hear that, right?
Yeah, so it's like he's mowing your carpet, not mowing the lawn.
Now, of course, I could mute myself, right? But I might have something valuable to say. So if I turn the technology back on again, now, even though that's going on in the background, I can still continue to contribute to the meeting and say what I've got to say, rather than mute myself and be absent from the meeting because somebody's mowing the lawn outside, and I can't, shout out the window, "Can you stop mowing the lawn? I'm on a call. Thank you." It's that sort of thing. We'll turn him off.
And so, that's not only enhancing the experience, but also with the Voicea technology, the captioning, the subtitles, or whatever you want to call it, the transcription of the call on the screen at the same time can really help you get through a conversation. Can't it? Even though you're distracted at your end, you've got that background noise. Potentially, no one else is hearing that noise. You're still hearing the noise, but you can still read off the screen and get some extra context to the conversation that's flowing. So, it looks like from both sides, they've really thought about that, haven't they, at Cisco?
Yeah, and who knows? It may actually end up in the situation where because the noise suppression is done on the client side, and then what gets sent to the cloud, actually that aids the accuracy of things like the Webex assistant, because it's now getting a more pure signal, if you like, in terms of what the audio is. And again, I'm guessing, right? I don't know whether that will be the case or won't be, but it'll be interesting to see that actually if you get a cleaner signal, does that start to aid other parts of the Cisco portfolio? So I think this is really interesting, right? I think and again, this is not new technology in the sense that things have been around. I mean, you and I were discussing something the other day where I think one of the tweets that you posted, a company responded and started talking about 3D audio, right? And I went, 3D audio? What on earth is 3D audio, right? So I looked it up, and bizarrely, there's a YouTube video where you can listen to 3D audio. But to me, it's that's the sort of gaming environment, right? So I put my headphones on, listened to this thing, closed my eyes, and it did this spatial audio. So I had one person talking in my left ear, right ear. It sounded like somebody was getting into a car next to me. There was a knock on the door, and it was realistic enough for me to turn around and go, "Who's knocking on the door?" Right? Now, that is cool technology. I'm struggling to see what benefit that might have in the meeting place. Okay, whereas here we've got noise suppression, which absolutely is going to have a benefit because it's reducing that distraction, allowing me to be focused and present in the meeting without worrying about all of the other stuff that's going on around.
Well, I think that's it, isn't it? You've hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, in the business world, it's about solving real business challenges and real problems. We're not gamers. We're not consumers. We are workers in office and now anywhere environments. So the role of the vendor, like Cisco, is to help continue solving those challenges and helping us be more productive, when working. So I think this is a great move from Cisco. Final question from me then, Jonathan. What next? Any insights here? Any scoop on kind of what Cisco plan to do with the BabbleLabs acquisition? I appreciate the deal's not done yet, but what do you think? What's coming up?
Tricky to say timeline. I mean, right now, what's in the public domain is their intent to acquire, right? So they actually haven't closed that acquisition. So that's obviously the first thing. They've got to go through those regulatory hoops to make sure that happens. I think it'll be interesting to see how quickly they take that technology and are able to embed that in the portfolio, right? In terms of, I think it's given its client side. I guess my hope is that that's going to be easier than if they were trying to meld it into the back end, right? In terms of, because obviously the fact that it works today, right? The fact that we could demonstrate this on WebEx today, means that one would hope that the integration is sooner. Now, again, hey, I used to be in the development environment. Everything's simple until you've got to write a bit of code to make it happen, right? So I think we've got to wait for that acquisition to close. Hopefully that will close quickly. And then it'll be, okay, let's wait and see what's happening. I think what we're seeing continually from Cisco is that, they've even renamed their releases now to be month number releases, right? So we're currently on the current release out there is 40.9, 9 being September, right? Coming down the line will be 40.10. Guess what? That's going to be released in October. 40.11 will be November. 40.12 will be December. So
sorry, is there a theme there? Is there a bit of a theme there, Jonathan? Or
no, that's absolutely intentional. That's absolutely, that's Cisco, because again, I think they got, there's this bizarre naming convention, and people go, well, when's that going to be out? So now, if somebody said to me, when's 40.10 going to be out? It's going to be out in October. I can't tell you when it's going to be in October, but that's when it'll be rolled out. What's in it? Well, that depends on their agile roadmaps and everything else. So
it's pretty cool. Pretty cool that they're rolling updates out every month, though. I mean, that's certainly refreshing to see, isn't it?
Yeah, and that that's been a conscious move over the last sort of 2.5 years, really, of Cisco moving away from big train releases twice a year to much more frequent cadence of releasing to get stuff out there. I mean, you look at what's happened over, pre-pandemic, there was no virtual background, right? Okay, we've gone through those few months, and Cisco have rolled that out across the portfolio, right? And have enhanced that. It didn't work on my Mac for the first release. Now it does with the latest release, right? Because they've reduced the processing requirements to make that happen. So, we'll see this, hopefully soon, but I can't put a date on it in terms of there. And where the other stuff that's in there, the command processing that we talked about originally. I don't know. It remains to be seen how much or little Cisco take of that and then add to the portfolio. But certainly interesting times, and again, I think it shows Cisco's intent, with these acquisitions, really to move things forward as fast as they possibly can.
Yeah, it's really good to see. And thank you, Jonathan, once again for coming on the show, talking Cisco collaboration once again. It's been a really interesting conversation today. I hope you've enjoyed it too.
I certainly have. Always a pleasure talking to you, and it brightens my Friday up, Rob.
Absolutely. Right, so we'll let the audience go as well. So today, if you've enjoyed today's session, please do give us a like or a share on social media. It's always appreciated. We'll be back again sometime very soon for another Cisco focused session. For now, thanks for watching.